Hello again. Welcome to Seek the Mysteries. I wanted to make a video giving my thoughts on General Conference. And part of this video, or part of this presentation, I guess, I had started about a week ago. And I had mulled the idea around about actually making this video or if it was important or not. And then after I heard President Nelson's words at conference about being a peacemaker, I figured I should probably go ahead and make it. So this one is titled Render unto Caesar and Be Peacemakers. I'll give my thoughts on conference, specifically President Nelson and what he said, a bit of how this applies to Ezra's Eagle, and then what our duties are as Latter-day Saints. During conference, President Nelson talked about becoming peacemakers. He said, during this era of polarization and passionate disagreements, charity, the pure love of Christ, is the answer to contention. As disciples of Jesus Christ, we are to be examples of how to interact with others, especially when we have differences of opinion. One of the easiest ways to identify a true follower of Jesus Christ is how compassionately that person treats other people. The Lord's true disciples build, lift, encourage, persuade, and inspire, no matter how difficult the situation. True disciples of Jesus Christ are peacemakers, and he said, I urge you to be a peacemaker now and always. And then he talked about a higher and holier way of communication and invoked the 13th article of faith, telling us to say only that which is virtuous, lovely, or of good report or praiseworthy about others. He says there's no room for prejudice, condemnation, or contention of any kind. If your verbal arsenal is filled with insults and accusations, now is the time to put them away. He said, today I invite you to examine your discipleship within the context of the way you treat others. I bless you to make any adjustments that may be needed so that your behavior is ennobling, respectful, and representative of a true follower of Christ. So, why is this important in the context of what I want to discuss? Well, we live in a world that is incredibly contentious, and it almost feels like we're being kind of tricked almost into being upset. And not us just as in members of the church, but I'm saying in society, in the United States especially. The political landscape is chaos, and it is very divisive, and it feels like it's a constant back and forth of arguments, and not arguments in a respectful way, arguments in a really hostile way. And so the reason I initially wanted to make this presentation was because of this. Donald Trump has stated that he is going to be arrested soon. Apparently he's going to be indicted on a number of charges, and whether you like Trump or not, this is very strange. This has never happened to somebody running for president. Now, whether he's guilty or not is beside the point. If he's guilty, he should be punished, but it's very unusual for a presidential candidate to have this kind of attack against him. And so I wanted to bring this up in light of what President Nelson said about being peacemakers. A lot of people get very up in arms about this type of thing. They're very polarized. They're either you're very much on the right side of things or you're very much on the left side of things politically. And I think President Nelson is telling us to rise above that. If we are to build up Zion or even be prepared for the Lord when he comes back, we can't wallow in the filth. We don't need to be so concerned with this type of thing that we become bitter and contentious. So as far as Ezra's Eagle implications, if Trump is arrested, seems very unlikely that he would be president or be elected. But it could also have the opposite effect of rallying people behind him. Regardless, though, of what it does to our society, we as Latter-day Saints have certain responsibilities. In the New Testament, the Lord in the book of Luke says, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things which be Caesar's, and unto God the things which be God's." Here the Lord's being, I don't think it's tempted so much, but they're trying to confound him and say, well, are you supposed to pay taxes? And so he said, well, give me a penny and show me whose picture is on it. And of course it was Caesar. And so the Lord said, this is Caesar's, give it to Caesar, and give unto God the things which be God's. So in the context of our day, and in light of trying to become peacemakers, our duty is to overcome the world. Our duty is to keep our covenants and to become a Zion people. We also have the 12th article of faith, which says we believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, and magistrates, in obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law. So, sustaining the law in the United States especially, we have the right to assemble, we have the right to peaceably protest and request a redress of grievances. But that doesn't mean that we need to become contentious. That doesn't mean that we need to become like everybody else around us. You can honor and obey the law even if you don't necessarily like the law. And this reminds me of something President Oaks said in October of 2020. In this he says, "This does not mean that we agree with all that is done with the force of law. It means that we obey the current law and use peaceful means to change it. It also means that we peacefully accept the results of elections. We will not participate in the violence threatened by those disappointed with the outcome. In a democratic society, we always have the opportunity and the duty to persist peacefully until the next election." So I had put this slide together several days ago, and when I heard President Nelson's words, it reiterated to me the fact that we really do need to learn to cultivate peace. We need to learn to cultivate kindness even to those who are hostile towards us. And believe me, there is going to be a fair amount of hostility coming towards the Latter-day Saints. There already is, but I personally think that it's going to get pretty violent against us. Early members of the church suffered incredibly at the hands of others, especially unlawfully at the hands of others, and yet they persisted. And so our duty, again, is to follow President Nelson's counsel and to rise above that. So, last slide is, what is our duty? We are to show love. The prophet Joseph Smith said, "It is a time-honored adage that love begets love. Let us pour forth love and show forth our kindness unto all mankind." He also once said, "If you can't accept our religion, at least accept our hospitality." There will be plenty who don't believe what we believe and who will be rude and contentious about it. And there will be many who don't believe what we believe and yet are pretty nice to us about it. But regardless if somebody embraces the gospel with all their hearts or if they reject it, we can show Christ-like love, just as our Savior did. We are to avoid contention. In 3rd Nephi, in the Book of Mormon, the Lord specifically teaches this. In fact, it's one of the first things he teaches. He says, "For verily, verily, I say unto you, he that hath the spirit of contention is not of me, but is of the devil, who is the father of contention. and he stirreth up the hearts of men to contend with anger one with another. So it kind of goes back to whatever entices you to do good is of God, and whatever entices you to do evil is of the devil. We can look at it the same way. Whatever entices you to contention is of the devil, and whatever entices you to peace is of God. We're also to be subject to the laws. So no matter what happens in the political landscape and with the presidential election, we need to obey the law. We need to be subject to the law. We need to avoid hostility and violence. We need to turn the other cheek. And it's not always going to be easy. And I think that's why we're being counseled now to cultivate peace, because it's going to be more and more difficult in the coming years to remain peaceful unless we are actively working at it right now. And lastly, follow the Spirit. Clearly, the Spirit had been telling me to think about this and to work on this. And with what President Nelson has taught in this most recent conference, it's an extra push in that direction. So be faithful, immerse yourself in the gospel and in the scriptures, and do your best to show love even to those who despitefully use you and persecute you, because persecution is coming. We know that. We know that as the world gets closer and closer to the second coming, it's going to become more and more crazy and more hostile and more violent. And we need to avoid that. If we are to become Zion, or a Zion people, we are to have one heart and one mind, to esteem others as ourselves, and to rise above all of that filth. And so this is now my goal, and I hope that it can be yours as well. Thank you again for watching these videos. I hope that they bring the Spirit to you, and I hope that they give you something to think about. And I will see you on the next one.